My name is Eleanor Hughes. I'm 67 years old, a retired administrative assistant from Portland County School District. For 32 years, I filed forms, balanced budgets, and made coffee stronger than most marriages I've seen. These days, I live quietly in the same brick house my late husband and I built back in 1986. I water the roses every morning. I talk to my cat Watson, and I pay the mortgage that my son promised to help with someday. That Sunday afternoon felt no different. The kitchen smelled of roasted turkey leftovers. The clock ticked lazily. I just returned from the grocery store, muttering about the price of butter. Then I noticed the tablet blinking on the counter. It was still connected to a video call. I leaned closer. The screen showed my son Ryan's smiling face frozen mid-laugh. But the sound kept going. At first I thought it was background noise. Then I heard his voice, sharp, careless, familiar. "That old man won't last a day after Thanksgiving," Ryan said. "The house will be ours," Marissa added. I froze. The turkey bag slipped from my hands and burst open gravy, spreading like a crime scene across the floor. For a second, I didn't breathe. Then something strange happened. I laughed. "Well," I muttered, grabbing a paper towel, "I guess I'm the old man now." The fridge hummed louder, as if mocking me. I pressed pause on the tablet, replayed their words again. Their voices echoed through my kitchen like ghosts of greed. Marissa's tone was calm, calculating. "All we need is the paperwork done after Thanksgiving. He'll sign it. He trusts you." Ryan laughed. "She's the one losing it. She won't even notice." My hands trembled. For 38 years, I raised that boy. I stayed up through his fevers, through his teenage arrests, through every lie wrapped in apology. Now he called me a fool, a dying one. I looked around my kitchen, the unpaid bills stacked neatly, the family photos smiling from the fridge. All of it suddenly looked like evidence. My heart pounded, my mind sharpened. I wasn't dying, I was awake. The curtain fluttered in the autumn wind, and for a split second I thought someone was outside. The shadow moved across my porch, a delivery van just passing by. But my pulse didn't slow down. Something in me clicked, the same instinct that once made me spot forged invoices at the district office. They wanted my house. They thought I was soft, old, forgetful. They forgot one thing: I still know how to play paperwork like a violin. I turned off the tablet and whispered to no one in particular. 5 days left. Then I grabbed my keys, wiped the gravy off my shoes, and drove into town. If my son and his wife wanted a game, I'd give them one they wouldn't forget. The wind howled through the trees as I pulled out of the driveway. In the rearview mirror, my house stood still, red brick glowing in the fading light. But for the first time, it didn't feel like home. It felt like a battlefield waiting for dawn. And 5 days later, I arrived. But I wasn't alone. Their faces turned speechless. I woke up the next morning to the smell of burnt toast. Watson, my cat, was pawing at the counter, trying to steal a piece. The world looked perfectly normal, which almost made the memory of that call feel like a dream. Almost. But the sting in my chest reminded me it wasn't. The coffee maker sputtered as I waited. The mug I reached for was chipped on the rim. The white ceramic read, "World's Okayest Mom." Ryan gave it to me 15 years ago, back when sarcasm still had warmth. I poured the coffee black, no sugar, and stared at the calendar hanging by the fridge. Thanksgiving week. The words, "family dinner," were circled in red. That single red circle had once meant comfort. Now it looked like a target. I sat at the table and remembered the day I let Ryan and Marissa move in. It had been raining hard that week, the kind of Portland rain that soaked through bones and promises. Ryan had stood on my porch, drenched, holding a cardboard box and an apology. "Just until we get back on our feet, Mom," he said. Marissa stood behind him, perfectly dry under her designer umbrella. She smiled like someone posing for sympathy. "It won't be long," she promised. That was 11 months ago. 11 months of groceries, repairs, utilities, and emotional service fees, all paid by me. They'd turned my home into a halfway house for failed ambition. The first few weeks were fine. Ryan helped mow the lawn once. Marissa made pasta twice, then announced she was gluten sensitive. They said thank you in the same tone people use to close a text they'll never answer. By month 2, the temporary stay had become a permanent situation. My grocery bill doubled, the fridge emptied faster than my patience, and I began finding mysterious Amazon boxes labeled Marissa's Business Supplies. She was starting a home venture, which I later learned meant reselling candles I'd paid for. I still tried to be patient. I've faced worse than lazy family members. I once mediated a school fight involving 3 parents, 1 raccoon, and a marching band baton. Compared to that, this was quiet chaos. Still, every time I opened a bill, I heard Ryan's teenage voice saying, "Don't worry, Mom, I'll pay you back someday." Someday never came, but the interest sure did. There were moments of false peace. Summer barbecues in the backyard, Marissa laughing too loud, Ryan bragging about jobs that didn't exist. I'd stand by the grill turning chicken legs and smiling, pretending not to notice they'd invited friends without asking. They toasted to family togetherness using wine bought with my credit card. Once during one of those evenings, I caught Ryan whispering to Marissa by the fence. She said, "We should really make this house ours someday." He kissed her and said, "Someday soon." I laughed at the time, thinking they were just daydreaming. Turns out they were drawing blueprints for betrayal. I sipped my coffee, the bitter taste matching the memory. Watson jumped onto the table tail, curling like punctuation at the end of my thoughts. "Don't look at me like that," I told him. "You freeload here, too." He meowed, unimpressed. I glanced out the window. The neighbor across the street, old Mr. Keene, was walking his dog in the same predictable route he'd followed for 20 years. People like him made me believe in stability routines that never turned on you, unlike children. As the morning went on, the house creaked around me, pipes settling floors, sighing like it too was tired of being used. The refrigerator kicked on again with a low hum. That sound used to mean comfort. Now it felt like a reminder that every appliance in this house was running on my dime. Around noon, Ryan texted me, "Hey Mom, Marissa and I are heading to a brunch meeting. Can you transfer $80 for gas and parking? We'll pay you back next week." I stared at the screen until my coffee went cold. Then I typed back, "Of course. Next week sounds great." I hit send, smiling at my own reflection in the phone screen, the face of a woman who had finally stopped believing in next week. While they were gone, I walked through the house taking mental notes like an inspector. The faucet in the guest bathroom still leaked. The garage door sensor was broken again. And the spare room my late husband's study now reeked of hairspray and fake tanning lotion. Marissa had turned it into a content corner for her social media career that apparently paid in hashtags, not rent. I reached for one of her ring lights, switched it on, and looked at myself under the glow. The harsh white light flattened every wrinkle, every regret. For a second, I didn't look old. I looked dangerous. I chuckled softly. Maybe I should start filming tutorials. How to raise a con artist without noticing. The phone rang, suddenly slicing through the silence. My heart jumped. I picked it up, just a spam call about car warranties. I hung up but felt the adrenaline linger. That same rush that comes before confrontation. The part of me that once handled angry parents and budget cuts knew it well. I realized something then. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about territory. My home wasn't their inheritance. It was my fortress. And if they wanted a fight, I'd make sure they regretted underestimating a woman who once balanced 12 school budgets and a failing marriage simultaneously. I opened the fridge and began unloading groceries, methodically lining up each item by size and date. Order and chaos, my kind of therapy. Each can of soup, each carton of eggs was a reminder that I still controlled something. I heard the front door open around 4. Their voices drifted in, loud and casual. Marissa laughed. "We should get sushi tonight. Mom loves paying for family dinners." Ryan replied, "Yeah, but maybe we should wait till after the transfer goes through." They didn't even whisper. I kept my back-turned, hands busy with the groceries. My voice stayed steady. "Welcome home." "Did you have a productive meeting?" Ryan froze mid-step. "Oh. Yeah, productive." Marissa's smile flickered. She sensed something. She always did. Predators recognize other predators. But I smiled wider. Good. I hope it was worth every penny. That night, after they went to bed, I sat in my study. The same desk where my husband once did taxes now held a notebook and a pen. My handwriting was steady, the same cursive I used to write thank you notes to school donors. At the top of the page, I wrote Monday, call someone who believes me. Then I underlined it twice. Watson curled beside me, purring like an engine. I stroked his fur and whispered, "It's time to stop feeding everyone else." Outside, the wind picked up, shaking the old oak tree by the porch. For the first time in months, the sound didn't make me nervous. It sounded like applause. Breakfast smelled like betrayal and maple syrup. Ryan was already in the kitchen when I came down flipping pancakes like he was auditioning for a cereal commercial. His smile was stretched too wide, the kind of smile people wear when they've rehearsed it in the mirror. "Morning, Mom," he said, voice dripping with sweetness. "I made breakfast. Thought we could all eat together." I blinked. Ryan hadn't cooked since 2009, the same year he forgot my birthday, and borrowed $2,000 for car repairs that turned out to be a trip to Vegas. Marissa floated in behind him, silk robe, messy bun arranged just enough to look spontaneous. "Eleanor," she chirped, "you look so radiant this morning, Radiant." I was wearing my old flannel robe with a bleach stain shaped like Florida. "Oh, honey," I said with forced delight. "You're such a flatterer." We sat down. Ryan poured orange juice, his hand slightly shaking. Marissa spread butter across her toast, avoiding my eyes. The silence between us buzzed like a trapped fly. Then she said it casual as weather talk. "So, Eleanor, I've been meaning to ask, have you, updated your will lately? I nearly choked on my coffee." Her voice was syrupy, practiced. "You know, just in case with all the paperwork, houses, assets, all that complicated stuff." Ryan jumped in, pretending to laugh. "Yeah, Mom, we were just talking about that. You should really think about the future." I leaned back, my lips curving into a smile sharper than the butter knife. "Oh, sweetheart," I said cheerfully. "It's so funny you ask about that, because I was just thinking the same thing last night." Marissa's eyes flickered excitement, then caution. "Really? Absolutely," I said. "In fact, I might make some changes." The silence that followed was delicious. You could have poured it over pancakes. Ryan cleared his throat. "Changes? Like, what kind of changes?" "Oh, nothing too dramatic. Maybe giving more to charity. Maybe setting aside something for Watson's vet bills." I grinned. He's the only man in the house who doesn't lie to me. Ryan's fork froze mid-air. Marissa let out a laugh too loud, the kind that trembles. "You're hilarious, Eleanor." "I know," I said. "That's why I keep myself around." The air thickened. Even the clock seemed to tick slower, cautious not to interrupt. Then came the knock on the door. Clara, my neighbor. 63, retired detective, self-proclaimed human lie detector. She had a knack for showing up when tension reached its boiling point. This morning, the pot was whistling. "Morning sugar," she said as she barged in with her usual flair, carrying a basket of muffins. "I baked too much again. My oven's as needy as my ex-husband." Marissa forced a smile. "That's lovely." Clara plopped the basket on the counter, eyes darting between Ryan, Marissa, and me. "Ooh, family breakfast. How sweet. Though I gotta say body language looks more like a hostage negotiation." I coughed to hide my laugh. "Clara, don't start." She winked. "Oh, I'm just observing. See, when people touch their noses while talking, they're lying. When they look left, deception. When they smile without showing teeth, manipulation." Ryan instantly rubbed his nose. Clara pointed at him like she'd just solved a murder. "Aha." Marissa giggled nervously. "You're funny, Clara." Clara turned to her. "And you honey keep blinking that fast and I'll start checking your pulse. I nearly spit out my coffee." "Clara." She shrugged. "What, just keeping the neighborhood safe?" The tension snapped for a brief, absurd moment. Laughter echoing through the kitchen, masking what was truly simmering underneath. But behind my smile, a storm was taking shape. Ryan excused himself to take a work call, though I caught a glimpse of his phone screen, stock trading app, red everywhere. Marissa started cleaning up, humming off key. Clara leaned close to me and whispered, "You okay, Elle?" "Your son looks like a raccoon in headlights." "I'm fine," I said, "just reevaluating my estate plan." Her eyebrows rose. "Ooh, the financial apocalypse kind of reevaluation." "Something like that," I said. She patted my hand. Well, you holler if you need backup. I still got my old badge and a taser. I smiled. I'll keep that in mind. When she left, the laughter faded with her footsteps. Silence settled again, thick and uncomfortable. The kind of silence where people remember what they're hiding. Marissa approached the sink, washing plates with extra care. You know, Eleanor, she said, it's really generous of you to keep this house going. It must be such a burden. Her tone was sweet poison. Oh, it's not a burden, I said lightly. It's an investment, one that's finally paying off. She froze, sponge in hand. Paying off, I smiled again, that same polite, cutting smile. You'll see soon. My heart was steady, cold even. The kind of calm that comes after a storm right before another. I was done being the trusting fool. When she left the kitchen, I opened the drawer under the microwave. I had bought a small USB recorder the night before, $29 black, discreet the size of a lipstick. I pressed record. A tiny red light blinked, once then disappeared. I slid it behind the microwave between the cords and dust. From that angle, it would catch every word, every whisper, every accidental confession over morning coffee. I looked around my kitchen, once a place of warmth, now a stage for deceit. The walls felt like witnesses, tired but loyal. Watson rubbed against my leg, purring. You and me, partner, I murmured. I poured the rest of my coffee into the sink, watching it swirl down the drain like old trust. Then I wiped the counter, straightened the chairs, and smiled at my reflection in the microwave door. The reflection smiled back, sharper, wiser. For the first time, I didn't see a mother trying to keep peace. I saw a woman preparing for war. The next morning, I traded my flannel robe for a navy blazer that still smelled faintly of office coffee and toner. It was the kind of outfit that said I may be retired, but I still know where the bodies are buried. I also know where the binders are hidden. Watson watched me from the window as I locked the door. Guard the fort, partner, I told him, and if anyone touches the thermostat, bite them. The drive to the county records office took 20 minutes, but it felt like rewinding a lifetime. That brick building had once been my second home, the place where I spent 3 decades approving budgets, processing deeds, and mastering the sacred art of bureaucratic patience. I could navigate its hallways blindfolded and still find the break room where someone always burned popcorn. Walking through those glass doors again felt like stepping into a time capsule that smelled faintly of disinfectant and regret. At the reception desk sat Trudy Mays, my old co-worker, who'd once declared that retirement is just government exile. Her glasses still hung from a chain around her neck like a badge of war. Eleanor Hughes. She gasped, half delighted, half suspicious. Either you're here to gossip or to start trouble. Both, I said, smiling. Trudy's eyes twinkled. God, I missed you. What brings you here? Paperwork, revenge. I lowered my voice. A little of both, actually. That was all she needed. Within minutes, she'd pulled me into the back office, the sacred land of squeaky chairs and broken staplers, the same beige walls, the same motivational poster peeling at the corner. Integrity is doing the right thing when no one is watching. How ironic. I need property transfer records, I told her. Under my address, 412 Maple Drive. Trudy's fingers flew across the keyboard. Still got the magic touch, huh? 30 years of filing forms, I said. It's muscle memory. The printer hummed, spitting out pages. I reached for them, expecting to see the usual ownership confirmation. Instead, I froze. Ryan's name was there. And not just as a relative, as an applicant. Filed 2 weeks ago. Attempted property transfer. Status pending verification. My stomach tightened. Trudy, I whispered, can you print the authorization request? She frowned. This looks shady, Elle. You didn't sign this, did you? No, I said flatly, but someone forged my signature. She leaned closer. You want me to flag it? And not yet. Let's make copies first. 3 sets. As the printer spat out evidence, I felt something shift inside me, a cold, precise focus. This wasn't just family drama anymore, it was attempted fraud. Trudy handed me a paperclip and grinned. Still the same Eleanor calm while the ship's on fire. I smiled faintly. Old habit. If you panic, the paperwork wins. Before leaving, she slipped a flash drive into my palm. Office copy. For your records. I raised an eyebrow. Trudy, that's technically illegal, she said. Oh, honey, it's tradition. We both laughed, the kind of laugh that sounded too close to relief. As I stepped out into the parking lot, the autumn wind whipped through my hair. My hands were trembling slightly, but not from fear, from adrenaline. I had the proof, and now I needed backup. I sat in my car, typed elder law attorney near me into my phone, and found one name that stood out: Patrick Lennon. 5-star reviews, former prosecutor, now specializing in protecting seniors from financial abuse. His office was just 5 miles away. I drove there like a woman on a mission, which in fact I was. The law firm sat in a small brick building beside a diner that smelled like bacon and betrayal. Inside, the air was crisp, quiet, and intimidatingly professional. A young assistant greeted me with the kind of smile that suggested she'd already seen 1,000 desperate clients before noon. Appointment, she asked. Walk in, I said. Urgent. 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from Patrick Lennon, early 40s, sharp gray suit hair, too perfect to trust completely. His desk was spotless, except for a silver pen and a cup of black coffee that matched his expression. So he said, scanning the forms I handed him, "Your son tried to transfer your house into his name." "Attempted to," I corrected, and forged my signature. Patrick tapped his pen against the paper. "Do you have proof?" I slid the folder forward. 3 copies, 2 stamped, 1 blessed by an overworked bureaucrat. He flipped through the pages, eyebrows lifting. "You worked for the county records office, didn't you? 32 years, I said. "I used to train the people who process these." Patrick leaned back, impressed. "So you know exactly what to look for." "Better than that," I said. "I know how to make sure this doesn't disappear into a shredder." He smirked. "I like you already." While he read, I took in the office walls lined with law books, degrees, and one framed quote that caught my eye. "Justice is rarely loud, but always certain." It made me smile. Quiet justice, my kind of language. Patrick looked up. "You did the right thing coming here. Most people ignore the warning signs until it's too late." "I ignored plenty already," I said. "But I'm awake now." He nodded slowly. "We'll file a fraud alert, freeze the property transfer, and notify the verification office. If your son pushes it, it becomes criminal." "Good," I said. "He's been coasting on morality's gray areas long enough." Patrick chuckled softly. "Sounds like a complicated relationship." I shrugged. Complicated stopped being the word when he started treating my kindness like currency. He studied me for a moment, then said, "You don't look like a victim, Ms. Hughes." I met his eyes. "That's because I'm not planning to be one." He smiled, a real smile this time. "Let's keep it that way." I exhaled for what felt like the first time all day. Relief, sharp and dangerous, flooded in. As I stood to leave, he handed me his card. "Call me if anything changes, and keep those originals somewhere safe." "I already have a plan," I said. On my way out, I passed a bulletin board full of pamphlets. Elder fraud, prevention, protecting your assets, know your rights. I grabbed one of each. Old habits die hard. I was still an administrator at heart. Outside, the air smelled of rain and resolution. I slipped the folder onto the passenger seat, fastening the seatbelt around it like a companion. Watson's empty carrier sat on the back seat. I smiled. "Don't worry, partner," I whispered. "Mom just declared paperwork war." I started the engine, the wipers squeaking across the windshield. For the first time in months, I didn't feel powerless. I felt dangerous, like a storm with a filing cabinet. The next morning, the rain returned to Portland, soft, steady, and familiar, the kind that painted every window with gray reflection. I stood outside Patrick Lennon's office, holding 2 coffees and a folder heavy enough to break a conscience. He'd texted me late the night before. "Come by early. Bring caffeine and courage." I figured 1 out of 2 wasn't bad. When I walked in, Patrick was already there, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. His office smelled like paper and old victories. He smiled when he saw me. "You brought peace offerings." "Black no sugar," I said, handing him the cup. "You still take it like a Marine." "Once bitter, always bitter," he said, settling behind his desk. "Sit down, Eleanor. We've got work and some talking to do." I sat across from him, setting my folder on the polished wood. The rain tapped against the window like a metronome. For a moment, neither of us spoke. It wasn't awkward. It was the kind of silence people earn, the one that sits comfortably between two survivors. He finally said, "You look tired." "I've been sleeping next to fear," I said. "It snores louder than my late husband." He chuckled. "That's morbidly funny. I work with what I have." Patrick leaned back, watching me. "Do you know what I like about you, Eleanor?" My sarcasm, he grinned. "That too. But mostly you remind me of myself after my wife passed. Everyone expected me to fall apart. I didn't. I made spreadsheets." I smiled faintly. "That's my kind of grief therapy." He nodded. "Grief gives you two options, fall or file. You chose the second." I took a sip of my coffee, letting the warmth cut through the chill. "You ever wonder why the people we love most are the ones who hurt us hardest?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled out a yellow legal pad and started writing something. Then he said, "Because they're the ones who've seen what we'll forgive." The words hit deep, simple, true, and unfair. I looked down at my folder. I used to think trust was something you built once and it stayed. Now it feels like wet cement. One wrong step and it cracks forever. Patrick set down his pen. "That's the thing about trust. It doesn't vanish. It just changes direction. You stop giving it to people and start giving it to systems, contracts, documents, laws. Paper doesn't lie. Paper also doesn't hug you back," I said softly. He smiled sadly. "True. But it won't empty your savings either." That earned a laugh from me, dry and genuine. Patrick flipped open my folder, scanning the pages. "Okay, we're going to create a revocable, living trust. It'll move your assets out of your name, but keep you in full control. If your son or daughter-in-law tries another transfer, they'll hit a legal wall they can't climb." I nodded, taking notes like a student. "And this power of attorney thing, that's how they almost got me right." He pointed his pen at me. "Exactly. Power of attorney abuse is the fastest growing form of elder exploitation. Once you sign it, they can sell your house, drain your account, or even limit your medical care. You'd be surprised how many loving families use it as a weapon." "I'm not surprised anymore," I said quietly. Patrick looked at me for a long moment, then leaned forward. "You know, Eleanor, you're handling this better than most. Some people come in shaking, crying desperate. You came in with printed records and sarcasm. Crying wastes ink," I said, "and sarcasm is cheaper than therapy." He laughed again. "You sound like my late wife. She was a nurse, smart, stubborn, always right. You two would have driven me insane together." For a second, something unspoken flickered between us. Recognition, empathy, that quiet bond between two people who've already lost too much. I broke the moment first. "Patrick, do you ever feel guilty for not being more forgiving?" He thought about it. "Forgiveness is for the heart. What we're doing here, this is for survival. Don't mix the two." I stared out the window. Rain streaks distorted the world outside, turning every reflection into a ghost. "You ever notice I said how glass and mirrors only show what's in front of them, never what's behind?" He smiled. "That's why people like us exist. We remember what's behind. That's where the truth hides." The words stayed in the air like fog. He handed me a pen. "Sign here. This trust makes you the sole trustee and beneficiary. No one touches your property without your consent, not even me." I hesitated before signing. The weight of the pen felt like holding a sword made of logic. When the ink dried, something shifted inside me, not anger, not relief, something steadier. Patrick closed the folder. "There. You just built a wall higher than their greed." I exhaled slowly. I never thought the thing that would save me was paperwork. He grinned. "Paperwork built this country, Eleanor. Wars start with emotion, but they end with documents." "Now that's romantic," I said wryly. He smirked. "I'll take that as a compliment." The rain eased outside, turning from a downpour into a soft mist. The world beyond the window seemed washed clean, at least for now. Patrick leaned forward, voice gentler. "You know, I lost my son 10 years ago. He didn't die. He just stopped calling. Different kind of death, I guess. I felt a sting in my throat. I'm sorry." He waved it off. "I made peace with it. Sometimes family isn't who shares your blood, it's who helps you file your forms." That made me laugh harder than I expected. "Then congratulations, Patrick. You're officially my next of kin." "Good," he said, raising his coffee. "Just don't leave me the cat." We both laughed again, and for a moment it didn't feel like strategy or survival. It felt human. Then he said something that quieted the room. "Eleanor, you know what I've learned after 40 years of legal battles?" I raised an eyebrow. "That lawyers never lose their hair, only their morals." He smiled faintly. "That too. But mostly this paperwork can speak louder than revenge." I let those words sink in. They weren't dramatic, but they carried the kind of power that doesn't fade. I smiled small but certain. "That's the quiet kind of justice I like." He nodded. "The best kind, the kind that leaves no fingerprints." When I left the office, the rain had stopped completely. The clouds were breaking apart and sunlight spilled through in cautious rays. I paused by the car, holding the folder against my chest. It was light in weight, but heavy in meaning. Somewhere between anger and forgiveness, I'd found something stronger control wrapped in calm. Watson would get extra treats tonight. Dinner that evening smelled like butter tension and bad acting. I could tell something was coming the moment Ryan set the table himself, plates perfectly centered candles, lit napkins folded like swans. When my son suddenly becomes Martha Stewart, I know a performance is underway. Marissa floated in wearing pearls that probably came from one of my credit cards. She smiled with too many teeth. "Dinner's ready, Eleanor. I made lemon chicken." "I'm impressed," I said. "You remembered the chicken this time." Her smile faltered just a second victory. 1 daughter-in-law, 0. Ryan poured me wine. "To family," he said. "To boundaries," I replied. He froze glass halfway to his lips. We ate in silence for a while. The candles flickered. Watson, ever the opportunist, sat under my chair waiting for fallen crumbs. I envied his simplicity. No manipulation, no fake compliments, just hunger and honesty. Then Ryan cleared his throat. "Mom, I wanted to ask you something important." "Ah." There it was, the appetizer before the con. He leaned forward, eyes soft, rehearsed. "You know how I've been looking into investment education programs? Well, there's this incredible opportunity. $2,000, but it could really change things for us. Us." The word hung in the air like cigarette smoke. Marissa added, "It's not even for us. Eleanor, it's for him, for his future. He's finally taking responsibility." I dabbed the corner of my mouth with a napkin, pretending to consider it. 2,000, you said. Ryan nodded eagerly. "Just for the course. Totally legit. I even have the brochure." He pulled out a glossy pamphlet with stock charts and smiling retirees. "Ah," I said, scanning it. "The font is Comic Sans. That's how you know it's serious." Marissa forced a laugh, voice tight. "Eleanor, you've always been so supportive. Ryan really needs this chance." I swirled my wine slowly. "Do you remember how much the last opportunity cost? The one that changed nothing for anyone but Visa." Ryan's smile flickered. "Mom, that was different." "It always is," I said. He tried to recover, lowering his voice. "I'm trying to improve myself." "Isn't that what you want?" The line was smooth, almost touching. If I hadn't heard the same tone used by students begging for extensions on essays they hadn't written. I leaned back, pretending to hesitate. I'll think about it." The reaction was instant. Ryan blinked, confused. Marissa's fork clinked against her plate. "What do you mean, think about it?" she asked. I said evenly. "I'll think about it. The same way you both thought about paying rent last month." Ryan's mouth opened and closed like a fish on land. "Mom, are you serious?" "Completely." Silence filled the room again, this time sharp enough to cut with. Even the candles seemed to dim. It was the first time I had ever said no to them, and the power in that word felt electric. Marissa tried one last performance. Her eyes glistened. "Eleanor, I didn't think you'd make this about money. You know how much we love you." Oh, I never doubted that I said sweetly. I just finally decided to love myself, too. Ryan shoved his chair back, frustration seeping through his calm facade. "Fine, forget it. I'll figure it out on my own." "Good," I said. "That's what adulthood is." He stood there, caught between anger and disbelief. Then he muttered something about needing air and stormed out onto the porch. Marissa stayed seated, blinking away fake tears. "He's just hurt, Eleanor. You know how emotional he gets." "I do," I said. "That's why I keep my valuables locked." Her lips tightened. "You've changed." "Yes," I said. "Finally." She got up, muttering something under her breath, and followed Ryan outside. Through the window, I could see them arguing under the porch light, two actors improvising after losing the script. I gathered the dishes, slowly savoring the quiet. Every clink of porcelain was a punctuation mark on years of manipulation. Watson jumped onto the counter, eyeing a leftover piece of chicken. "You deserve it," I whispered, giving him a small bite. "At least you earn your meals honestly." When the front door slammed, I didn't flinch. I rinsed the plates, loaded the dishwasher, and wiped down the counter. The rhythm of routine was oddly satisfying. The house, once heavy with tension, now felt lighter, like exhaling after holding your breath too long. But I knew this wasn't over. Ryan wouldn't give up that easily. People who live off others always mistake kindness for weakness. Tonight, I had shown them the difference. As I dried my hands, my phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Patrick checking in. "How did dinner go?" I typed back. "Exactly as expected." Then after a pause, I opened a new message. To Clara. "Text I might need a favor soon." I hit send. Clara might be retired, but she still had her detective friends and her taser. If things escalated, I wanted the law on my side before the drama found the headlines. I turned off the kitchen lights, leaving only the glow from the hallway lamp. The house reflected back at me through the dark window, familiar yet foreign. Like looking at an old photograph of myself I no longer recognized. I walked to the hallway mirror, stopping in front of it. For years, that reflection had belonged to a woman trying to keep everyone comfortable. Tonight, she looked different. Posture, straight eyes, steady jaw, relaxed, calm, unafraid, dangerous even. Watson brushed against my leg and purred his reflection beside mine. I whispered to him, "They think they're playing a game. Let's show them who wrote the rules." The mirror version of me smiled back, cold, quiet, victorious. The next morning, Portland woke under a fog so thick it felt like secrecy itself had taken physical form. I stood in front of the courthouse clutching a folder full of signature stamps and justice disguised as paperwork. Patrick arrived first, trench coat, buttoned hair, damp with rain. "You ready, Eleanor?" He asked, his tone somewhere between lawyer and co-conspirator. "As ready as someone transferring her own house to a fund named after her coffee mug can be," I said. He chuckled. "The Maple Hollow Teachers Fund deserves it. It'll protect you and help other educators. That's poetic symmetry. Let's make poetry legally binding then." Inside, the clerk recognized me immediately. "Miss Hughes, you're back." I'd worked here 27 years ago, stamping forms, correcting typos, watching people argue over property lines and inheritances. Funny how life circles back. Now I was the one behind the counter seeking protection from my own family. "Need a title transfer," I said lightly, "and make sure it's sealed like Fort Knox." The clerk smiled, sliding over the forms. "Still efficient, I see." Patrick leaned close, whispering, "Your past career is saving your present life." I filled out each line with surgical precision. Property address, grantor, grantee. Lifetime occupancy clause, the words that would soon stand between me and betrayal. Every stroke of the pen was armor. The notary, a woman named Denise, with bright red glasses, checked the documents twice. "You're signing over your house to a teacher's fund, but keeping lifetime residency rights." "That's right," I said. "It's my version of a moat." She stamped the papers, heavy, satisfying thuds that echoed through the small room. Each sound felt like a door slamming shut behind Ryan and Marissa. When it was done, Patrick shook my hand. "Congratulations, Eleanor. You no longer own a house. You own peace of mind. I'll take peace over drywall any day." Outside, the rain had softened into mist. I called Clara as we walked toward Patrick's car. She answered on the second ring. "Tell me you're calling with good news, not bail money." "Good news," I said. "The house is legally off the table." Clara whistled. "So if those two lovebirds try anything, they'll be breaking into non-profit property. That's bold even for them." "That's why I need your help," I said. "Could you arrange a welfare check? Something official on record just in case." "Already ahead of you," she replied. "I've got 2 officers ready to swing by Thanksgiving morning. Paper trail's your best friend." Patrick smiled at that. "See, you're building a fortress one file at a time." We met Clara at her favorite cafe, a cozy place that smelled like cinnamon and sarcasm. She sat by the window, her detective badge now replaced by a sweater that said, "Retired not expired." Here she said, sliding a recorder across the table, "For your preemptive statement. Standard protocol when you're smarter than your suspects." Patrick hit record. "For the record, Eleanor Hughes has completed a legal transfer of her property to the Maple Hollow Teachers Fund, effective immediately. Lifetime residency granted. Any threats from family members are now classified as criminal harassment." I added, "If they try anything, I want the footage to have good lighting, maybe a filter." Clara grinned. "Oh, don't worry. If they so much as blink wrong, I'll make sure they smile for the camera. Mug shots do wonders for narcissists." We all laughed, but the laughter had a weight to it, the kind that comes only from people who've seen too much. Afterward, Clara walked me to my car. "You sure you'll be okay alone until Thursday?" I nodded. "They don't know I know. That's my advantage. Then use it wisely. People like them, they get dangerous when the gravy train stops." "Let them try," I said quietly. "I've already changed the tracks." She patted my shoulder. "That's my girl. Keep everything documented. If they send texts, save them. If they show up unannounced, hit record. Paperwork and video, best kind of double tap." Back home, the house felt different, lighter somehow. Not mine anymore yet, still my refuge. The legal shift had changed the air itself. The weight of fear had been replaced by the calm of preparedness. I walked through each room, fingertips brushing the furniture, like saying goodbye to a loyal friend. The documents lay open on my kitchen table, stamped and sealed my new armor. For years, I'd protected others, students, colleagues, my son. Now, finally, I'd learned to protect myself. Watson followed me tail high as if sensing the change. "New era, buddy," I told him. "No more victims in this house." I placed the official folder inside the fireproof safe and locked it with a click that felt like punctuation, the end of one story, the start of another. The phone buzzed a text from Patrick. "Everything filed. You're untouchable now. Dinner Friday." I smiled. "Only if you bring contracts." He replied with a laughing emoji, for a man who looked like he'd been carved out of courtroom granite that was practically flirting. The clock ticked softly. Thanksgiving was 2 days away, the calm before the storm. I walked to the kitchen, opened the refrigerator. The turkey sat there defrosting slowly, 12 pounds of symbolism wrapped in butcher's paper. My reflection appeared faintly on the shiny oven door. I looked tired, yes, but not beaten. There was focus in my eyes now, the kind that comes after choosing yourself over guilt. I traced the words of the label with my finger and whispered, "Let's serve truth for dinner, Thanksgiving night." The house glowed with soft amber light, every corner spotless, every fork aligned like soldiers ready for inspection. I'd been setting the stage for days, and tonight my guests would play their parts beautifully. Ryan and Marissa arrived at 6 sharp arms full of grocery bags, faces rehearsed into innocence. Marissa chirped, "Oh, Eleanor, you really went all out this year." Her tone was sweet enough to rot the turkey. "I do try," I replied, smiling. "After all, Thanksgiving is about gratitude. Isn't that right, Ryan?" He gave a small laugh, but his eyes darted to the wine bottles chilling in their bucket. "You know me, Mom, grateful for good wine." "Oh, I know," I said. "I made sure to pick your favorite." The turkey rested perfectly on the table, golden and steaming. The smell of rosemary filled the house, warm, comforting, deceptive. My reflection in the window looked calm, maybe even happy. But the mirror knows the truth that calm was practiced, rehearsed, controlled. We sat down. Marissa insisted on pouring the drinks. Her hand trembled slightly as she uncorked the wine. She laughed it off, her bracelets clinking. "Just nerves," she said. "It's a big night." "For all of us," I replied. I watched her out of the corner of my eye as she leaned toward my glass. Her ring finger brushed the rim just enough time to drop something in. A powder nearly invisible. She'd done her homework. Too bad I'd done mine better. 5 nights ago, I had practiced this scene down to the reflection in the glass. I had swapped the stemware labels, memorized the motions. Tonight, her trick would flow right back where it came from. When she set the glass before me, I smiled, then adjusted the napkin. "Thank you, dear." "Oh, and would you mind handing Ryan his?" Marissa nodded, grabbing the glass, the wrong one. My hand barely twitched as she placed it in front of him. He raised it with a grin. "Finally, some real wine." "Indeed," I said. "It's a special vintage, honest, unfiltered, and poetic in its consequences." Marissa frowned. "What?" "Oh, nothing," I said, lightly lifting my own glass. "To new beginnings and honest hearts." They both echoed, "To new beginnings." The glasses clinked. For a few moments, everything was ordinary, the scrape of forks, the murmur of conversation, the soft jazz I'd chosen as background. Then I saw it. Ryan's eyes, unfocusing his hand, pausing mid-air, wine dripping from his fingers onto the tablecloth. He blinked, twice, confused. "Mom, what's in this?" "Oh, dear," I said gently. "You tell me." He tried to stand, but his legs faltered. His fork clattered to the floor. Marissa gasped. Standing so fast, her chair toppled. "Ryan, are you okay?" I tilted my head. "That's a question you should have asked me 5 days ago, don't you think?" Her face went pale. What did you do?" "Me," I said. "Nothing. I just switched the glasses. You spiked it, sweetheart." She froze. "No one will believe that." The doorbell rang. Once, twice. I smiled. They already do. Marissa turned just as Clara stepped in, badge glinting under the porch light. Beside her was Officer Lewis Patrick, and to complete the irony, a notary public with a clipboard. "Evening, folks," Clara said cheerfully. "Smells great in here. Shame about the tension." Patrick stepped forward, calm but firm. "Mrs. Hughes, I believe it's time." "Of course," I said. He handed Clara a sealed envelope, statement of intent notarized. Confirms the property transfer and Mrs. Hughes's prior notification of potential harm. Clara nodded. "Perfect timing as always." Marissa sputtered. "This is insane. She set us up. Oh, honey." Clara said, her grin razor sharp. "That's the thing about traps. You can't claim innocence when you bring your own bait." Officer Lewis checked Ryan's pulse. "He's fine. Probably just a mild sedative. We'll get him checked out." Marissa lunged toward me. "You ruined us." I stayed seated, hands folded neatly on the linen cloth. "No, dear. You did that the moment you tried to poison your own mother-in-law for a house that doesn't even belong to me anymore." Patrick stepped beside me, placing a steady hand on my shoulder. "Eleanor, you've done everything right. The paperwork speaks for itself." Marissa shook her head wildly. "Paperwork? You think this performance will save you?" Clara smirked. "Performance? Honey, this is the show. And guess what? You're the villain." 2 officers entered quietly through the backdoor standard safety measure Clara had arranged. Marissa froze, realizing the entire night had been choreographed. "Smile for the camera," Clara said. "It's Thanksgiving after all." Marissa's knees gave out, and she sank into the nearest chair. Her voice broke into a whisper. "You knew the whole time." I nodded slowly, every second, and I wanted to see how far you'd go. "Turns out you didn't disappoint." Clara guided her to her feet, cuffing her gently. Attempted harm, probable intent to defraud, and possession of a controlled substance. Quite the feast of charges. Patrick exhaled. Justice served. The notary scribbled the final line on his form, stamping it with a satisfying thunk. The house was silent except for the distant hum of the refrigerator, the same one that had kept the turkey waiting just like me. Clara looked at me smiling. "You good, Eleanor?" I glanced at Ryan, now groaning as paramedics lifted him. "He'll live," I said. "And that's punishment enough. He'll have to wake up and realize what he became." I turned back to the table, wine glasses still half full, candlelight flickering over the chaos. It wasn't how I imagined Thanksgiving would go, but it was exactly what needed to happen. I picked up my glass, raised it slightly, and said softly, "Happy Thanksgiving." Patrick gave a quiet laugh. To new beginnings indeed, and for the first time in years the toast felt real. My house glowed under the flashing lights of the police cruisers parked outside. Red and blue reflections rippled across the windows, painting the room in shades of closure. I sat at the head of the table, still wearing the beige sweater I'd picked that morning, ordinary, simple, steady. Officers moved methodically around the dining room, photographing every glass, every spill, every trace of what had just happened. One technician sealed the opened wine bottle in a labeled evidence bag suspected substance. Everything that once felt emotional was now being turned into documentation. Patrick stood by the doorway, phone pressed to his ear, speaking to the district attorney. "Yes, that's correct. The property transfer was completed yesterday at 4:37 p.m. The Maple Hollow Teachers Fund is now the legal owner. They have nothing, no claim, no rights, no leverage." Through the window, I saw Marissa sitting in the back of a police car, pale under the flashing lights. Ryan was being lifted onto a stretcher, dazed and broken, not by poison, but by consequence. Clara flipped through her notes, dry humor in her tone. "Well, at least they won't have to worry about rent in county jail." A young officer laughed. I didn't. It wasn't anger that kept me quiet. It was the weight of release. After months of holding my breath, silence was the sound of freedom. Patrick walked over. "Eleanor, are you all right?" "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I feel lighter." He nodded. "That's the first step." I looked at the table where the official documents rested. Deeds, signatures, seals. All those forms Ryan once mocked as useless bureaucracy had become the very walls protecting me. Clara joined us, holding the evidence sheet. "We've got everything. The powder in the glass, her fingerprints, the phone recordings you saved, and the forged property forms Ryan tried to submit last week. They'll face multiple charges." I closed my eyes, breathed. Finally, the paperwork speaks. Patrick added, "And it speaks louder than any courtroom speech ever could." My gaze wandered across the room, the family photos on the wall, my framed service certificate, my late husband's old clock ticking steadily. Everything had witnessed the rise and fall of loyalty. When the police finished packing up, Clara stayed behind. She sat across from me, folding her arms. "You know, I used to think cases like this only happened in crime shows. Turns out real monsters just wear family smiles. I thought my family would be different," I murmured. "Everyone does," she said softly. "What matters is you stood up, not for revenge, for survival." I nodded. I didn't want pity. I wanted to reclaim what was mine, not the house, but my dignity. Patrick's voice was warm. "And you did. They'll be prosecuted and you'll be protected, not just by the law, but by the truth." I smiled faintly as tears filled my eyes, not from sorrow, but from release. I spent my life teaching people to be honest. Tonight, honesty saved me. Clara glanced at the police cars pulling away. "They'll have plenty of time to reflect. County jail has excellent acoustics for regret." I laughed quietly. It wasn't bitter. It was clear, tired and free. "You always know when to break the tension. Occupational habit," she said. Patrick gathered the documents into his leather briefcase. "I'll file everything first thing tomorrow, but tonight, Eleanor, rest. The story's over." I rose slowly, my hand brushing the table. The remnants of dinner remained half-filled. Glasses, melted candles, an overturned chair. But they no longer symbolized chaos. They marked closure. I walked toward the window. My reflection stared back, an older woman, not frail, not defeated. Just someone who had finally said enough. Clara gave a small smile. You know I've seen people in this job end up broken, but you ended with strength and grace. That's rare. I turned to her, my voice quiet but steady. I just want them to understand one thing. What's that? She asked. I built a home, I said softly, not a loot box. Clara chuckled. That line belongs above the courthouse door. Patrick grinned, or at least on tomorrow's front page. We laughed together, the kind of laughter that comes when the storm has passed. For the first time in months, it didn't sound forced. When they left, I switched off the lights, leaving only a single candle burning on the table. Its flame wavered, then steadied like me. Outside, Portland was still blanketed in fog, but inside my little house, the air was clear, because justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers through paper ink, and a woman who finally stopped apologizing for surviving. I poured myself a cup of tea. No wine, no bitterness, just warmth. One sip, one breath. And the truth settled quietly. Justice doesn't need noise. It only needs to be right. Winter came back quietly that year. The first snow arrived like a peace offering, soft, patient, and unannounced. I stood by the window of the Maple Hollow Community Center watching the white blankets spread across the parking lot, where volunteers were stacking food boxes. It was the same building that now carried the name of the fund that had saved my life. The Teachers Fund plaque hung near the entrance, polished and proud. I traced my gloved hand over the engraved letters. For those who teach, guide, and protect it, read. I'd written that line myself. Every Thursday morning, I came here to help. I registered families, refilled shelves, and poured coffee for anyone who needed warmth. The irony wasn't lost on me. My house had once been a battlefield, and now it was the reason people found shelter. Eleanor Hughes, a familiar voice called behind me. Patrick stood at the doorway holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. His coat was dusted with snow, his tie slightly crooked as always. Still working harder than everyone else I see. I like staying useful, I said, smiling. It keeps the ghosts from getting bored. He laughed, handing me a cup. Cinnamon latte, half sugar full sarcasm. Just the way I like it. We sat at the folding table by the window. The center buzzed with the soft hum of activity boxes opening, laughter, echoing children chasing each other near the coat rack. Patrick leaned back. You know, it's funny. You lost a house and somehow ended up owning half the town's gratitude. I didn't lose it, I said. I traded it for peace. He nodded. And maybe a little fame. Did you see the article in the Chronicle? I skimmed it, I said, pretending to hide a smile. They called me the woman who outsmarted greed. Makes me sound like a board game character. Patrick chuckled. Better that than the victim who stayed silent. We both fell quiet, letting the moment settle. Outside, snowflakes swirled like slow-motion confetti. Inside, the heater hummed softly, a comforting domestic sound. Then the door burst open and in came Clara, cheeks flushed from the cold scarf trailing like a comet tail. "Tell me this place still has donuts," she shouted. I laughed. "Only if you share your gossip first." She threw her gloves on the table and winked. "You heard about Ryan's plea deal?" Patrick raised an eyebrow. "You're not supposed to discuss open cases, detective." She smirked. "Retired detective. Big difference." I shook my head. "No gossip. Today's about the good kind of noise laughter, instead of sirens." Clara grinned and plopped into the chair across from me. Fine. But if someone brings jelly donuts next week, I'm interrogating them for the recipe." We all laughed, and the sound filled the room, warm, unforced, honest. Laughter in place of sirens. That was the motif of this new life I'd chosen. After the shift ended, we walked outside together. The air bit gently at our faces, the snow crunching beneath our boots. The streetlights turned the flakes into glitter, and the sky looked almost forgiving. Patrick offered to drive me home. "I still worry, you know," he said as we pulled up to my driveway. "I know," I replied. "But you can stop now. The house isn't mine anymore. It's just safe." He nodded, smiling. "Safe is good." Before he drove away, he handed me a small envelope. "Merry early Christmas," he said. Inside was a simple card cream. paper gold lettering. To my favorite client, you didn't just win a case, you rewrote the definition of home. I placed it on the mantel beside my teapot, an old family photo, the one from before things fell apart. And for once, it didn't hurt to look at it. That night, I built a small fire. The flames danced inside the fireplace, reflecting on the framed deeds and letters I kept on the shelf. I thought about how much noise the past year had made. Arguments, sirens, lawyers, tears. Yet in this quiet moment, everything felt balanced. I picked up my journal and began to write something I hadn't done since before the storm. They wanted my house, I wrote. I gave it away and found something better. Peace. The clock ticked softly beside me. Outside, snow kept falling steady and endless. I closed the journal and looked toward the window. My reflection was different now. The lines on my face hadn't vanished, but their meaning had changed. They no longer told a story of loss, they told a story of endurance. A faint knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts. Clara peeked in again, holding a box of pastries. "I forgot these earlier," she said. "And you can't end a day of justice without sugar." I laughed, shaking my head. "You'll give me diabetes before retirement." She grinned. Better that than despair. After she left, I sat back down, taking a bite of the pastry. The sweetness lingered, simple, grounding, human. The fire crackled, casting light on the house that once carried fear and now carried warmth. In voiceover, my thoughts unfolded like quiet snowfall. They wanted my house. I gave it away and found something better: peace. I looked toward the front door where my nameplate used to hang. Now a new one rested there: Maple Hollow Volunteer Home. And then one last thought surfaced, gentle but powerful. Justice doesn't scream. It signs its name quietly. If you believe in quiet justice like this story and share where you're watching from,